Hey, it is Zennial Gamer here today to talk at long last about how to build your solo R5 team. Now, before we jump into the guide, just a quick note. Solo R5 is late game, if not end game content, and not everybody's going to be able to build a speed solo R5 team. However, it is much easier to build a sustained solo R5 than a speed solo R5. Now today we're going to be looking at the speed version of this team, but if you just wanted to build a team that works and you're not worried about how fast it goes, or if you don't have the rune quality yet to build this team, I would suggest going online and just looking up R5, like actual R5, and find some of the articles that are like 3-4 years old from before BJR5, from before BSR5, from before all the current gimmick teams, and build a team like that. What you're looking for is stuff that gives heal block, glancing, attack break. You're looking for sustain on your own units, probably a little bit higher resistance lead, that type of thing, and you just want to out-sustain the boss. Those teams will still run at a minute to a minute and a half these days because they've made R5 much easier over time than it was from when those articles were written, and that's perfectly fine to speed up your progress. Now, with that said, again, we're going to be looking at the solo version today. I'll tell you guys there's two different types of solo R5 teams you can build. One uses BJR5, the other doesn't. Why would you not use BJR5? There's two reasons I can think of. The first is if you can't get enough damage on your Bale, because the solo R5 version of the BJR5, or the BJR5 within the solo R5 team needs a Bale that hits for more than just barely the minimum. The other reason you might do it is if you're having problems getting synchronization between your three teams, which is really the biggest challenge. It's basically, in order to make BJR5 work in solo R5, you need to be able to make the boss jump. You need to be able to do enough damage to the boss that he jumps before Lauren goes again on the BJR5 team. If the Lauren takes her second turn before the boss jumps, you're probably going to fail. Now, with that said, let's talk a little bit specifically about what this BJR5 team is going to look like. So there's two ways really that you can build your Bale in the Optimizer. One is to put your artifacts on him beforehand, and then come down here and just use this use current artifacts only option. That's probably going to be the fastest way to actually get the build because it does take longer to run your optimizer with artifacts. Now, if you don't know which artifacts you want to use on him, or you want the optimizer to pick those artifacts for you, then you can actually just come in here. I would still recommend going like main stat attack flat. And then on the attribute side, you're probably going to be looking for something like attack increasing effect. On the type side, you're going to be looking for those same two things, but you're also obviously going to be looking for skill 3 crit damage. But I do really recommend just finding the best artifacts for him in advance and then going to use current artifacts. Now, in the original version of this video, I did say that you should look for only a crit damage slot 4. 99% of the time that's going to be true. But you might also throw in an attack percent on slot 4. I know it's kind of counterintuitive, but maybe you have a bunch of just crazy, super high crit damage sub-properties on your slots 1, 3, 5, quad rolls and all that, but they don't have any attack percent to go with them because crit damage multiplies attack. So having 280 crit damage with no attack is not as good as having 250 crit damage with a bunch more attack, something like that. And then I am suggesting you look for 35,000 damage. The way you calculate the damage is by clicking on this damage options button right here. We're going to change to his third skill, Start of Apocalypse. We are going to change the multiplier to 550%. The reason is because the first hit is 400, the fifth hit is 550, and that's the number we care about. So we're going to change that multiplier. Beyond that, you just want to have buildings checked, defense break, and attack buff. You're going to look for how much he does on a crit. You're going to be looking for, in the team I'm going to show you, you're actually going to be looking for a 33% attack leader skill. Depending if you're using a different version of the team, you may go 40, but the team we're working on today is a 33% attack leader skill. And then you just want to make sure your dungeon preset and your guild skills are both set to R5. And then you're all set over there. The last section is your options up here in the top right. I would suggest checking all your runes, including locked runes, and then having everything else unchecked. Now, just the last couple of final notes on your BJR5 version of the team over here. Please remember, your Dagora needs to be faster than Jansen and slower than Belager. This was listed as optional in the original video. It is not optional for solo R5. It is very important derp protection. So your Dagora must be faster than Jansen and slower than your Belager. And I know there's a lot of people who will use Shayna instead of Lauren. If you're doing a party BJR5, then using Shayna over Lauren is not acceptable because it can cause runs to desync because the animation speeds are different. In the solo R5, I did not actually test Shayna in that team, but I think that using Shayna instead of Lauren will have different impacts depending on what your other monsters are in your other teams. And there may be instances where it could actually help to have the slower animation of Shayna on the BJR5 team because it might help offset slower animations on the other teams. Okay, now, in addition to the BJR5 team, we have two more teams, obviously. The first one is a branding team. The goal of this team, the entire goal of this team is to keep brand up on the boss so that your Bale does more damage. And the second one is a team-up team, and the goal of the team-up team is to do a lot of damage, help offset the gap of only having one Bale, not three, and also in order to get some additional defense breaks on the boss. Now, if you guys have ever run the old BSR5 team, which came before BJR5, you will remember that BSR5 would fail about 1 to 3% of the time, maybe 2 to 3% of the time, something like that. And all of those fails, when the teams were built properly, always came because you had two Laurens, and every now and then, both Laurens would miss a defense break. So, the challenge of building solo R5 is keeping that defense break up, and more importantly, it's getting the defense break up before your Bale goes. This means that we want defense breaks on all three teams, not just the team-up team, but we also do need some defense break on our branding team. So it's really a branding / defense break team. Now, I'm going to break down each of these teams, show you how to build them and tune them, but before I do, just a quick shout out, guys. If you appreciate the video, please consider subscribing to the channel, turn the bell notifications on, smash the like button. You know the deal, guys. Okay, so first off, let's take a look at the branding team, because I know you guys are probably looking at that Douglas and thinking, oh crap, I don't have Douglas. Let me talk to you real quick about how you would actually figure out alternatives. This is maybe one of the most important features in the game that people on stream all the time tell me that they don't use. If you go to the monster button right here and you click on collection, there is a search button right up here at the top that allows you to search for the exact kit that you're looking for. So in this case, we're looking for a monster that can brand. So we're actually going to scroll down here to harmful effects, and we're going to look for brand, which is right here, and we're going to go ahead and click search. And this brings up a list of all the monsters that can brand. You'll see that there's 3 stars in here, there's 4 stars in here, and so on. So we do have other options. But Douglas isn't just our brander, he's also our leader. So we also now want to come back up here. We're going to take a look for leader skills, and we're going to take a look at attack, because that's what Douglas is giving us, is the attack percent, right? When we do that, we find, look at this, Shiwa. So Shiwa is actually one of the monsters that is typically used as a 4-star fodder leader on our BJR5. In this case, we could 6-star the Shiwa, put her in place of the Douglas on the other team, use her leader skill, and then use a different fodder, like a 3-star Kali for our crit rate lead, on the BJR5 team. Now, Douglas giving us global attack is probably better than Shiwa giving us fire attack, but most of our major damage here, including Bale, is coming from fire, so Shiwa is a good alternative. Now, if for some reason you don't have Shiwa or you can't get Shiwa to work, another thing that you can use is the Wind Homunculus. The Wind Homunculus is something I know everybody has access to, has huge multipliers, does great damage. We actually are going to be showing him in one version of this team. So if we put the Wind Homunculus in here, now we have a little problem. We don't have a leader skill over here. So one of the things we could do to offset that would actually be to drop the Sabrina and add in a 3-star fodder, and use the 3-star fodder for a leader skill, like a 3-star, well, 4-star Shiwa, an unleveled Shiwa. Another thing you could do in this case would be to move your Shayna over in place of the Lauren, and then use the Lauren leader skill over here, and swap the Sabrina out for another brander like the Wind BK. At that point, you've actually got 4 branders over on this team, which will help you out quite a bit compared to like not having the Douglas giving you the ability to revenge. So you get that extra 4th brander over on this team instead, such as Halea or the Wind BK, or some of the ones I was talking about. Now I like Halea right here because she gives you the ability to actually defense break and brand at the same time. and she's got a really crazy high base attack. Despite only being a 3-star monster, you can use some HP based artifacts on her to offset the low effective HP. The Halea build I have here is not tuned for this team, so please don't copy that build. This is just an example of how you could shift up your team. So again, the biggest thing I want you guys to take away from this, use the monster search button. Find the monsters you have on your account that can brand and build a team around the concept that you want to keep this team able to keep the boss with brand at all times, but also able to give you that extra defense break option in case your Lauren, or in this case your Shayna, misses the defense break on team 1, and your Inagamis who are not 100% brand, not 100% defense break, they're only 70-80% on their skill 1, so if your Inagamis aren't defense breaking and Lauren or Shayna misses on the BJR5, we need that backup option over here. Now, in terms of the actual builds on this team, the Fran is going to be the fastest monster, and she's going to be super squishy. What we're trying to do is the same thing we do with the Colleen on the BJR5. We want her to actually take enough damage that she is under 30% health, but does not die, which will force her perfect AI. Now to do that, I've got my Fran set at 48k effective HP. I don't know the exact number that you want, but 48k has been working for me, and that is using the 3 monster front line that you see back over here. The second monster that's going to go on this team, and I'm going to bring up a spreadsheet right now and show you guys how I actually built this team. I actually speed tuned this entire team on a spreadsheet. The second monster that's going to go right now is the Sabrina, but you'll notice that I've got the Sabrina and the water homunculus, the homunculus highlighted in yellow. So I built 2 versions of this team. Both of them worked really well. The Sabrina team seems to be 100% so far. I don't want to promise it because I've only done 150 runs with it, but so far it has not failed in 150 runs. The Wind Homunculus team, I ran about 1,000 runs and it was failing about once every 75 to 100 runs, so it was a 98% team, we'll call it. The Sabrina team is somewhere between 98 and 100% team. The Wind Homunculus team, however, was faster. So the Wind Homunculus team was averaging maybe 32 seconds overall. I had some that were around 30, 31. The slowest ones were about 34. The Sabrina version of this team with the lower damage levels and 1 less brander will sometimes be much slower, sometimes as long as 45 seconds on a run, which brings the average down to like 36 on your bad sets, and then it stays at about 32 on your good. So I don't have an exact number for you, but overall I would say the Sabrina version of this team is probably 2 to 3 seconds slower, but probably going to be a little bit more stable. So if you guys care about never failing, then I would go with the Sabrina version. If you just care about the fastest runs you can, then I would go with the Wind Homie version. Anyway, you can see the speed tuning on screen right here. So Sabrina is going to go second if you're using her. Douglas is going to go second if you're using the Wind Homie. Now, when we take a look at their stats, every one of these monsters is basically going to be, you're gonna be like, oh wow, these are really crazy endgame runes that I can't match. I honestly can't tell you what the minimum damage is, but I can tell you that I'm probably way overkilling what I need. The important thing that I want you to focus on is that every one of these monsters has at least 90,000 effective HP. Most of them are closer to 100k. Again, I can't tell you the exact bottom number. I didn't test to find the precise number, but what I can tell you is that in an older version of this team, I had a lot of these monsters at about 75k effective HP, and they would die on the jump. So I went back to the old BJR5. Bale needs 85k HP to always survive, and I built everything here with 85k effective HP or higher. I went to 90 just for a little buffer, but 85k is probably the number you need to make sure they all survive. So, all of them have 85k effective HP. All of them I shot for at least 1,000 defense, even if I had to use a defense artifact, because the boss does more damage when your defense is lower. And so balancing it out a little bit by having that 1,000 defense along with an 85k effective HP overall is kind of the goal. For those of you who don't know, effective HP is the measurement of your defense plus your HP together, and you can get that through the Summoner's War Optimizer. I'm going to put a link on screen right now to a video that'll show you how to install the optimizer and how to use it. I'm also going to show you the Wind Homunculus build right here, and then just real quick, I want to show you guys how you find these builds in the optimizer. We're not going to run a build for every single monster in the optimizer because it's the exact same formula, but instead I just want to show you the overall way that you would do it. So we're going to do the Sabrina build in this case. We'll load up our Sabrina, and what we're going to be looking for is will plus any random sets. We don't really care, but we will take a preference if there are fight sets in there. So if we had like will double fight, that would be amazing. If we don't have good fight runes, or if we just don't have fight runes left because there are other monsters or whatever, most of the time we're going to wind up on rage. The big thing we want to do is avoid violent and nemesis. You never want violent or nemesis. Nemesis will cause your turn order to change when the monsters take damage, which is not what we want. Obviously, we're tuning this precisely to go in a certain order. And violent also can cause problems because if a monster procs too many times, it can cause the boss to attack you. The boss attacks you after it's been hit, I think it was 16 times. And it also, again, can just change your turn order because everything is synchronized here. So if the wrong monster procs at the wrong time, then you don't get a chance to defense break after the jump or something like that. It causes fails. So we're going to be looking to exclude Vio and Nemesis. All other sets are fine. We're going to be looking for attack, crit damage, attack on pretty much every monster. And then as I talked about earlier with the Veil, you can throw in attack percent and crit rate options here as well for the monsters that are not fire. For the monsters that are fire, we have so many crit rate leads that I wouldn't bother with the crit rate option, but I would still throw the attack percent in there just to see. Now, we're going to scroll down here. Again, I recommend that you just put the artifacts on in advance and choose use current artifacts. But the other thing you could do is just disable artifact optimization entirely and run your search for slightly lower stats and then use the artifacts to manipulate the result. For example, an HP artifact is worth about 7,500 effective HP. Same thing for a defense artifact. Varies based on the monster's base stats, but roughly 7,500 effective HP. So I might actually just look for 75,000 effective HP, and if the final build I find is low on effective HP, then I can add in some HP or defense artifacts to bring those numbers up. Now, Sabrina is water. We have a 19% common crit rate lead. We have a 23% fire crit rate lead. So for our water monsters, we only need 81. For our fire monsters, we only need 58. We're going to come over here to damage options. We're going to look at any of her skills. It truly doesn't matter which skill you look at. It doesn't matter exactly how precise you program this. What matters is that we have a point of reference. What we're actually looking for is whichever build does the most damage, and we don't really care if it does the most damage with skill 1 or skill 2 because we don't have any crazy modifiers. Like Ritesh, for example, his skill 3 does 30% of HP, and then his skill 1 scales on both HP and attack. So you get different results if you use different skills. Everything we're using in this BJR5, they all just scale straight off attack, so it doesn't matter. So we're going to pick her skill 1, we're going to load it up for our R5, we're going to just say we've got a defense break and an attack buff, and we only care about how much she does on a crit. So from here we'll go ahead and close the screen. Now if you're on the Optimizer Pro, you can delete the search depth. If you're on the free version, I would keep the search depth to probably somewhere around 20 because this is going to be searching a lot of rooms. If you have lots of gems and grinds in inventory, you can turn your grinds on. If you don't, or if your runes are already fully grinded, you can leave them off and get a faster run. Again, I'd recommend using, in this case, not locked runes, because you're building 18 monsters on this team. So what I would do is unlock all of the monsters in your swap, unlock them all, and then every time you build one of your monsters for the solo R5, lock that monster. And then you're going to leave the options all unchecked up here, and what that's going to do is it will search all the monsters that have runes except for the locked monsters. If you're not sure how to lock a monster, you just come over to the lock screen right here. So for example, we built our Bell already, and I just click on this lock button. We can actually come over here to our import. If you uncheck keep builds right here, when you import your JSON, it will unlock all of your monsters automatically. And then as you're building them, you're just going to go ahead and click on that lock button. Now back over here, again, if you know you don't have fight runes, or if you know your rage runes or your fatal runes are good, you can just run this here. I have a couple of builds in fatal, because again, 18 monsters, so eventually your fatal runes become better than the rage runes that you have left. I guess realistically it's not 18 because we have some fodders on the BJR5, but it's like 13, 14 monsters that we're putting really premium offensive damage dealing sets. Not premium runes because they're all really slow, but really premium offensive sets. So at a certain point your fatal runes become better than your rage runes that remain, or in my case I also use a fair number of fight sets, which is why I search for just the will and nothing else. But if you're trying to make faster searches, you can bring rage and fatal and all of that. Broken sets, I usually recommend always to avoid broken sets because there's a snowball effect, but if you're not able to get the builds that you need without them, then it's okay to use them. And this is what your configuration is going to look like. From here, we're going to come down here, we're going to go ahead and click optimize, and then you can see already I'm getting way too many builds, so I stop it before it come out with like 20 million builds or whatever. I sort by damage, and I can see right now that my top build is 13,900, so I'm just going to go 13,900 minimum damage. Now, the Sabrina does not need accuracy because of Shayna's passive. But just keep in mind that all of the monsters need 15 accuracy to land their debuffs. In R5, they need 15 accuracy. So, the Sabrina and the Shayna don't need any because Shayna gives 25 on the passive, but like your Douglas will need your Douglas will need 15% accuracy. Your Ayunu will need 15% accuracy. For those monsters, you just throw in the 15. Another thing I like to do is, because we have that crit rate leader skill, I'll cap my crit rate here at 83. I'll cap my accuracy here at 23. And the reason I do this is waste not, want not, right? We're, again, 18 monsters or 13, 14 monsters we're running builds for. So if you use all your highest crit rate runes on Sabrina and she has 130 crit rate, 50 of that's wasted, and now all of a sudden you can't find a build for Ayunu, something like that. So we'll go ahead and optimize again from here. We get a few builds, and then we can just pick between these, and you can see I've got 13,900 as my highest damage build. It also happens to be my highest effective HP. Now, the other thing, the last thing, is your speed. So you want to get your Fran as close to 169 speed as possible, but not over. No monster on this team anywhere should be over 169 speed, and the reason for that is because we need the boss to act first so that the boss can hit Fran and force that perfect AI. 169 is the fastest Fran can be. After 169, she'll outspeed the boss. Now again, I'm going to bring up the Excel spreadsheet. I want you guys to take a look at this spreadsheet. I'm going to go ahead and click on one of the formulas right here. So you can see we have attribute, we have base speed, we have we have game speed. So where it says speed, this is actually game speed. This is the speed of your build, how much speed is on the monster. So my Fran is 168. And then next to this, you can see a formula in the top line here. Now I'm going to leave this on screen for a second. If you guys want to copy it, you can pause it and just copy the formula. If you don't want to copy it, if you're not comfortable in Excel, I am also putting a copy of this spreadsheet template in our Discord server. If you are not in our Discord server, just check the video description. There's a link there. You can join Discord, you can download the spreadsheet, and the formula is there for you already. So what we're going to do is actually type in all of our monsters and the builds we found. So for example, I just found that Sabrina at 151. That gives her a combat speed of 167. This is the speed after my speed tower, basically. There's no speed leads, but my speed tower does need to go in here. And you can see this says 15%. If your speed tower is not maxed, for example, maybe you have a 9% speed tower, you would change this to 9%, and you would change it to 9% in every single one of these columns. So next up, after the Sabrina, we're going to build the Douglas, and you can see here I've got him at 150 speed. Maybe the Douglas comes in at 142 on your build. So if the Douglas is 142, the combat speed is 158. This Bernadotte, which is also Ken, depending on if you have the Street Fighter version or if you have the new version, the Bernadotte or Ken is going to have to be acting after Douglas, so we're going to slow this down. We see 141 would have him acting after Douglas. The reason I went in this order is just kind of multipliers. So the Douglas multipliers are slightly better than Ken's multipliers, but Ken cycles into taking a second turn. And then he does attack bar pushback on the boss. So because he does pushback, I wanted him acting later in the order. And then the Ayunu and the Homunculus will do more overall damage than the Ken and the Douglas will, so I had them acting later as well, just as kind of dirt protection in case my team-ups team didn't do enough damage. They help force the boss into the jump. Okay, from the branding team, we're gonna go to the team-ups team. If you're not sure how to build your Ikaru, I do have a video for building Trikaru, which I'll throw a link to that on screen. The only difference is that as you run your builds, you're going to make sure that you put in a minimum speed in terms of speed tuning the team. Once again, we'll put this up here. So you want to make sure that the Ikaru is speed tuned to act behind the Hung Young and in front of everyone else. Now, the Hung Young is the fire, by the way, if you guys don't know her name or if I'm pronouncing it wrong, This is the actual key to what made this team work for me. So going back to that monster search thing, I went through the monster search looking for a monster that had perfect AI to give me an attack buff in addition to Fran and Colleen. I could not find one. So Chasun can derp into her Fallen Blossoms. She doesn't have perfect AI. The Fire Skydancer Wahi's AI does not work consistently either, so I couldn't find a third smart AI attack buffer. And so I went into Monster Search and then I looked for her, and as soon as I saw her, I remembered a really cool key attribute. If you look in her passive, something a lot of us don't think about because it usually doesn't matter, is that your attack speed gets slowed down by half, blah, 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 who cares, and you cannot attack together while playing the song. So, I said passive, obviously I'm talking about skill 3, so in her Millennium Melody. So the Millennium Melody, what it does, the attack bar boost does not really come into play in this usage of her, but she gives each ally that gets a turn gets an attack buff for 1 turn until the next turn starts. So the nice thing here is we're getting some attack buff, the main monster attacking every turn is going to get an attack buff, and the Hung Yun cannot team up with them. Now, I will say that she rarely gets under 30% even in this build, so we'll see right now. Yeah, she's like 70%, and you can see she did derp there, so it seems like to me, if she gets under 70%, if she gets under 30%, I think the perfect AI works. I haven't been able to get her under 30 consistently enough to verify that. So I could be wrong about that, but what I will say is that the team itself is working. And I like the fact that in the low effective HP build, she still dies on the jump. And then obviously having the crit damage build means if she does derp and hit, at least she does a little bit of damage. Now you guys can see I've got plus 4,600 HP and plus 130 defense, and she's nowhere close to dying. So I don't know, honestly, that I could get her consistently under 30% to verify the perfect AI. But what I can tell you is that she serves a really good role in this team. It's worked really well for me. If somebody wants to test around and find something different in this spot, I'm all for it. So what are the weaknesses of this team? Like, which parts could I not fix in the Theorycraft, or have I not fixed yet, at least in the Theorycraft? The biggest one is simply the consistency of the defense break. So we're relying, from the Team Ups team, we're relying on Inugamis that are not 100% activation rate. And from the branding team, we're relying on Sabrina and Shayna getting their turns in the right order. But the boss will sometimes take so much damage, especially like if the Rauk scratches a lot on the center team. The boss will sometimes, or if I land a brand super early, the boss will take so much damage that Shayna may not act fast enough, and if the Lauren misses her defense break, the bail can sometimes go when the boss is not defense broken. Now that usually does not cause a fail, but it does cause the run to extend by several seconds, which is why the Wind Homunculus actually gives you the faster runs than the Sabrina. Because when the bail misses the, or rather when the bail goes with the boss not defense broken, he does so much less damage. The Wind Homunculus does so much more damage than the twins that it speeds up the runs on those derps. However, not having that extra defense break can sometimes cause fails. The other thing, as I talked about, the Hung Young, I'm still not positive that she has smart AI, but I am pretty sure that I can't get her below 30% either way consistently. So using a different monster in her spot might give you more consistent attack buff on the Team Ups team, but it also means that monster is going to team up more frequently, and if things broke really badly, there is the possibility that you wouldn't get the Vertihile or the Hua in any of the team-ups, which means that team-ups team is going to get hit. There's also a couple of other good monsters that could work on the team-ups team. So Carcano is amazing in that he will do like 60k damage every time they team up with him if he's in hidden name form. Downside to Carcano is, first of all, he would have to go first on this team, so you would have to give up the attack buff almost entirely because it screws up your turn sequencing. And then he will derp at times. Actually, he'll derp a lot and not go into hidden name form. So when he derps, then you're going to wind up with slower runs. When he doesn't derp, you're going to wind up with faster runs, a lot of times in the 26-27 second range because he puts out so much damage. But you'll see more fails if you use Carcano. Dragonov, which is the dark version of Carcano, same thing. You can actually use, if you have the Dragonov, you can use Carcano and Dragonov both with team-ups, and you put out crazy damage. You'll get faster times, but you'll see more fails. You can also use Freya, which is the fire sylphid. You can use a level 1 Freya in triple fight, or actually double fight will, double fight will, because you need her not to get Oblivion. But you can use a level 1 Freya, and she'll give you a free cleanse, and then you don't have to put will runes on your team. I ran a version of that team with the Freya for a long time. The problem with the Freya is that you need her, if you put her on your team-ups team, then you need her to die right at the start. You can't let her stay alive until the jump. But the real issue is getting the boss dead after the jump. So if you want to keep the Freya alive until after the jump so that she helps you out there, then she has to be over here on your branding team. And if you do that, then you run into some issues with leader skills and just generally with getting enough damage out. Freya is a really good option in different teams. I know a lot of people use Freya, and she helps them a lot to get near 100% consistency. She just slowed the team down a little bit for me overall and didn't really fit into the team that I was building, but she is a really good option. There are also some other teams out there that you can look for on YouTube. I think there's an Odin version of, it was actually built as a second placement team, not a third placement team, but there's an Odin team that works as a second placement team where the Odin can actually get 2 turns and pop for like 70 plus K each. Uses really endgame runes and obviously ties up a great PvP monster, but it is a good alternative if you can't build or don't have the rune quality to build one of these teams. Alright, so we're going to finish up this video real quick just by running through the rest of the runes. So I showed you the Hungyung and the Ikaru. Here is the Vertihile. So the Vertihile, again, 60 crit rate. All I need is 58. We've got 2 fight sets here with really high damage output. If you can't match the runes in fight sets, I think my damage output is overkill. Honestly, guys, I don't think we need anywhere near this much damage. Need a lot, obviously, but I don't think we need this much. I think the important thing to focus on is the effective HP and the speed tuning. Those are going to matter much more. So the Crow, we've got him in Rage Will. We've got the Rauk. He's in Rage Will with a much higher damage build than the Crow, and this just had to do with the order that I ran the monsters. Again, notice Rauk is 27 accuracy, Crow is 17 accuracy. Every monster that lands debuffs needs at least 15% accuracy. We've got the Hua, she's in again double fight will, so lots of fight sets on the team up team, boosting up the Crow and the Rauk, and also boosting up the Vertihile. Over on this team, I showed you guys the Fran. This is the Iounu, so the Iounu is in Rage Will, 81 crit rate because he doesn't get the fire crit rate lead, and then again the minimum 15 accuracy. We build him as squishy as we possibly can while still giving him lots of damage, trying to get him to die on the jump. But keep in mind, he does have to live through the first turn. So the target for Iounu is somewhere, it seems to be somewhere between 50 and 60,000 effective HP. For the Douglas, we want him with as high of an attack as we can get to make sure he counters the boss. And then I've got Douglas in just Fatal Will. Again, 15% accuracy is the minimum. The Sabrina build, I think I showed you guys earlier. This is the Ken build. So he's got, it looks like my highest crit damage build. I must have built him early. And then just good overall attack, Rage Will. And then the Shayna is in Double Fight Will. In terms of where you want your fight sets to go, you want your fight sets to be on your lowest damage output monsters. So on this team, Shayna and Sabrina, my lowest damage output monsters. On the Team Ups team, the Vertihile, the Ikaru, and the Hua are going to be the 3 lowest damage output monsters. Actually, Ikaru is lowest, followed by Verd, followed by Hua, working your way up the ladder, followed by Rauk, and then Crow is your highest damage dealer. BJR 5 runes, it's a standard BJR 5 team. This is the Bale. Obviously a very strong Bale. Again, you want to get as much damage as you can out of your Bale. You probably want to build him first. And keep in mind that the order that you build the monsters in will determine where your best runes go. So you probably want to build that Bale first overall. You probably want to build like your Iounu, your Douglas, your Crow, and your Rauk after him, and then you build everybody else. Okay, last thing about this team, the formation is really important. So you guys see the formations that I have? These formations are based on the effective HPs that I've built to. So if you build to similar effective HP, this is how you want it to be. In other words, if your Iounu is between 50 and 60k effective HP, if your Fran is just under 50k effective HP, you want a 3 monster front line. And we use Douglas as the 3rd monster, obviously, because the boss will glance on him a lot more. For your Team Ups team, you just want the 2 monster front line. This will help to ensure, because the Ikaru is obviously going to be super tanky, super high defense. This will help to ensure that your other monsters all stay alive if the boss does get a hit. And then for your BJR5 team, it's just, you know, the standard frontline build. You can go with 2 monster, 3 monster, 4 monster, depending on which version of this team you've built. Alright, so that's it for today's video, guys. One more time, if you enjoyed the video, if you found it helpful, please smash the like button, subscribe, turn those bell notifications on. Check out one of the streams also. I stream Sunday nights at 8, Tuesday nights at 6:30 p.m. Pacific time. Guys, on that note, I appreciate you watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, and we'll see you next time. Hey, it is Zennial. Oh, no, wait, this is the outro. My bad. Hey guys, if you want to see more content, please smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, turn on the bell notifications. It's your support that makes me want to create continuing content. I thank you guys for the support, as always, and we'll see you in the next video.